Check it out, today I'll be reviewing the MTN Colors water-based markers. These are an acrylic-based marker from MTN Colors that come in a little range of sizes. They come in a range of 20 different colors and 5 different nib sizes. So to start off this video, I want to give Plndr a big shout out for supplying the markers in the video. I did an unboxing showing this and some other supplies off before. But as always, my opinions expressed here are based on me using the product and having it in hand. If you use the coupon code SIVE94 over at sprayplanet.com, you'll save 10% off your first order, and that is good through November 1st. Working our way from the largest down to the smallest, the square 15mm nib also has a small chamfered edge on the one side. This is really typical for any 15mm marker. The medium and the fine nibs feature a bullet tip style, with the medium coming in at 5mm and the fine tip coming in at 3mm. And it's actually extra helpful to have both of these defined on the top of each cap with a small M or a small F. I don't have on hand the 0.8 and the 1.2mm nibs. Your 0.8 nib is going to be a metal supported nib that's very small and similar to a fine point Sharpie. And based on the photos online, the 1.2 seems to be made out of the same material as all these other nibs. It just has a very tailored edge. I use these markers pretty much just with themselves, but MTN online says it's compatible with their full range of spray paints as well, so you can mix and match all these things together. Getting these markers ready and primed was super easy, pretty typical, shook them up and there was no mixing issues. Bleeding the nib didn't take too long and I only had one small mistake with the large black marker. It seemed that the valve and the body of the marker had come a little bit unscrewed in shipping, so it began to leak. I tightened it back up and haven't seen any of these markers work themselves back off, so I'm not sure that this is actually going to be a reoccurring issue. It could have just been a one-off mishap. The marker body is plastic and it also features a color ring on the top. The color rings are pretty accurate to the paint inside, and it's definitely helpful when you do store them all together to see and pick out from the whole stack. I will say, however, these don't stay on top of the caps super well. They seem to fall off pretty easy if you do have them floating around in a bag, but if you keep track of the little guys, they're easy to snap back on. I've only ended up losing one of them in the past couple months, so it's not the end of the world. The caps are still clear, so you can get a good idea about what color is behind it anyways. So as most reviews get down to really how is the opacity working and how efficiently can you work with the markers, I'm going to jump right into saying that the opacity is definitely mid-grade. Since this is a water-based and an acrylic, you're not going to have a bunch of the chemicals on your side to really buff up how the opacity is working. But at the same rate, even the super light colors like the orange I was using in the background, just a couple passes was able to go over the really dark kind of scribbles I had done in my head. And the whites and the yellows I also used, they worked great. They were in smaller areas, so it wasn't super crucial that they were perfectly opaque, but totally was fine with one or two passes on the super white sections, and the yellow held just fine over top of some of the greens. On top of this, MTN's datasheet on these water bases is claiming that they're highly weather resistant once they are dry, and long lasting in their exact color, so they're having good UV resistance to the outside sun and the elements of the world. I can't wholesomely validate this, as I'm not sticking this out in the sun and kind of taking photos over a year's time, but if it's any note about all their other products I have used in the past, these are definitely long-term stuff. Now this is actually the first time I've seen a full datasheet for a marker, and MTN went as far to show that it was actually less than 20% reflection when shined upon with a light, so that's basically the level of matte coverage on this. At the very end I did a gloss coat over top just to protect the whole thing, but this was definitely on the more matte side of the colors. And that's pretty typical for acrylics, so I'll have to go do my research and see what other kind of percentiles other companies are claiming, if they're even putting that time in to make a full datasheet like this. Now since these are water-based, the dry time is going to be a little bit longer than your oil-based or your xylene-based markers. Montana's claiming 10 minutes, I would say that was even a little long for this. I really didn't find any problem with going right back over colors, and with paint markers, sometimes having them a little bit more wet allows you to blend a little better. And although I wasn't doing a ton of direct blending here, I definitely had that option. Now by revisiting sections that may have been painted 5 minutes before, there was probably some carryover with the new color on top of the old, but if I gave that another minute or two, it would have been totally fine. This canvas is 14 by 18 inches, and I thought the fine tip combination with the medium tip markers worked really well for this size. I was really able to get details in the sizes I wanted, as well as do some larger sections and not feel like it was taking forever to fill. After using these over the past few months, I've found that the nibs are a tad bit softer. You're definitely not going to want to use them on a surface that's going to chew into them if you don't want them to fray up. Even just using them on the board, you can see some of the fibers at the top start to break and you got a little bit wider of a line. And if you're familiar with this, you'll know that the wider fibers let a little bit more paint through, so it flows and adds, a little bit more onto the board at the same time. These are double-sided nibs, so in the event that you want to keep one side really crisp for, super detailed and skinny lines, by all means keep and flip and reverse them as you need. Now I see the most movement towards the acrylics and the water-based markers coming from the scent that they produce. Seeing as there's next to no smell while using these markers, you can really use them in a confined area and not have to worry about airing it out afterwards or dosing yourself up. I painted this in a small workshop for a little over an hour, and you definitely could walk in and not tell that I had been painting in there. So with your health in mind, this might be a great choice to some of those harsher paints. Now with a color range of just 20 markers, you're not going to get some crazy, gradients as far as different colors in all the greens and all the reds. I wouldn't say 20 colors is the largest spectrum, but you're going to get a couple colors in all of the shades and then some silvers and golds as well. And blending is definitely an option with these, so you're not totally locked down to those exact colors that they offer. And if you like the combination of two colors perfectly, you can always go through and mix them within the bottle themselves. They also offer refills in the water-based. In conclusion, I would definitely recommend these markers to someone that's looking for something that's definitely opaque and works well, while not totally, messing up your room with some nasty smells. The wide range of nib sizes also gives you a pretty broad area of what you can work with. This canvas is definitely middle of the road for that, and you could even go a little bit bigger if you got a couple more of the big markers. Be sure to head over to Spray Planet where you can check out these markers and all the other MTN supplies. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you use the coupon code SIVE94, you'll get 10% off your first order over on sprayplanet.com. That offer is good through November 1st. And thank you to them for supplying all the markers for this video. It really helps to push more content out when I can try these things out and share with you guys before you have to buy. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to spray that like button and consider joining the crew by subscribing. I post weekly videos such as reviews like this, speed arts, or tutorials on graffiti. And on screen right now you'll see a piece I did last weekend in my backyard and the previous video from Spray Planet. I reviewed some of their street paint and some assorted mops, and it had some crazy results. So be sure to check either one of those out. That's going to do it for me, guys. Peace.